I'm not a vindictive person all the time, of course. You don't manage to run a chain of convenience stores without a fair amount of likability. In fact, if you met me, the first thing you'd probably notice is how affable I am. But if someone crosses me, that's a different story. I don't settle for petty revenge. I go for vengeance. You want an example? All right. I used to play rugby, still do occasionally. I was a lock, one of the second-row forwards, tall, solidly built, and reasonably quick on my feet. During one game, I was chasing down a high ball when this lumbering loosehead prop, number 1, smashed into me mid-air. I landed hard, wrecking my shoulder and sustaining a mild concussion. The referee called it accidental, but I wasn't convinced. The trainer subbed me out to assess the shoulder, and the team doctor cleared me to return. When I got back on the pitch, the big guy gave me a smug grin. Confirmation enough that his hit was deliberate. That's when I made up my mind. During the next scrum, I made sure to send a message. He didn't know for sure that it was my fist that caught him, and the ref didn't see it either. But that was just the beginning. As it turned out, fortune smiled on the bold. Their number 1 got the ball and lumbered into a run. He was brought down quickly, and the ruck formed. But he managed to set the ball back cleanly for their scrum half. The scrum half took his time organizing his backs, and that's when I saw my chance. I drove up from underneath my opposite number in the ruck, catching him off balance and sending him sprawling into their number 5, who then tumbled onto the loosehead's arm. Unfortunately for him, his hand was on top of the ball when it happened, and the combined weight of the 2 players fractured his forearm. When the dust settled, I emerged with stud marks on my face and neck where someone's boot had caught me, nursing my shoulder again for good measure. The officials didn't spot anything suspicious, and as their number 1 was helped off the field, he gave me a hard look. But since I was also receiving treatment at the time, he couldn't quite piece together if I had anything to do with his injury. That didn't matter to me, I knew, and that was enough. I'm not reckless enough to start a vendetta, though. I got lucky that time. The opportunity presented itself, and the result exceeded my expectations. Honestly, I just hoped they'd slow him down enough for me to deliver a hard tackle later in the game. But you get the point. Cross me, and I will make sure you regret it. Managing the accounts for my stores gives me a solid understanding of what sells, when it sells, and what kind of money should be moving through the registers. I'm also quick to spot irregularities at the tills. Most of my staff are women, wives, single mothers, and students. Not exactly the kind of people with a lot of disposable income. To minimize temptation, I offer them a generous staff discount and allow them to take home any expired food, with the understanding that it's strictly for personal use. Essentially, I've made it so stealing from the stores simply isn't worth their while. The wages are above average because the stores are profitable, but it's the perks that really stretch their paychecks. So, when I noticed my wife withdrawing significant amounts of cash from our joint account, it caught my attention. I make a good living from the stores, so I've never had an issue with her spending money. After all, that's what it's there for. But she rarely uses cash. We don't even have credit cards. She typically uses her debit card for purchases. There are 2 important things to know about me. First, despite how the rugby incident might paint me, I'm a meticulous planner. On the pitch, you play in the moment. Seconds determine whether you score or lose possession. But in real life, I think things through carefully. That's why I invested in stores with solid profit potential, not the ones across the street or a few blocks down. Second, I loved my wife deeply. Before jumping to the conclusion that she might be stepping out on me, I needed to understand exactly what she was doing with the money. I owed her, and myself, that much. All right, I'll admit it. I was already in a headspace where suspicion had the better of me. That's part of the vindictive side of my nature. I tend to assume the worst. Still, my rational side keeps me grounded. There could have been a dozen explanations for the cash withdrawals. Maybe she had a gambling habit. Maybe she was buying weed. Hell, for all I knew, she could have been squirreling away money to buy me a surprise gift, or planning her exit. The question was, how was I going to handle this? All my stores are equipped with CCTV and security systems, with cameras over the tills that are practically invisible unless you know where to look. But was I ready to bring that level of surveillance into my home? Bugging the house seemed excessive, even for me. I decided it was smarter to wait until she was out and check for myself. I needed some solid information before making my next move. With the stores running smoothly and my office staff handling the paperwork, I had the time to think this through. I took a walk down the high street to clear my head and ended up in a phone shop. I've always had a weakness for gadgets, and they were promoting software that could download all the contacts from your SIM card to a computer to back them up. That sparked an idea, a potential starting point. If I could download everything from our phones to the computer, I'd be able to search her contacts and maybe get a clue about what was going on. That evening, I installed the software. Lisa, can I have your phone for a minute? Why? I got this new software that backs up all your contacts. If your phone ever fails, you can reload everything onto a new one without manually entering all the numbers. It's pretty handy. She hesitated. I think my battery's dead, she said. That's not an issue. It connects via USB, so it'll power up from the computer. It's a good thing, too. If your phone had a bad battery or something, it could have corrupted your data. After a moment's pause, she reluctantly handed over her phone. I opened a folder on the computer under my documents, labeled it phone numbers, and downloaded everything from her device. There you go, I said. It's all saved in a folder under your name. If you ever need it, just go straight to it. Is it password protected? She asked. Nope. Easy access if you need it. I shifted gears, casually browsing the internet for classic cars while she watched her soaps. I had my eye on an E-Type Jaguar. If the right one came along, it might just be worth it. Eventually, Lisa hit her limit on TV drama and got up to make a cup of tea. The moment she stepped away, I quickly copied her file and emailed it to myself at work. I usually didn't bother checking Lisa's phone bill. It was paid by direct debit, and I'd never had a reason to look. But this time was different. I grabbed the folder from the desk drawer and took it to work. My first step was to go through her phone numbers, and it didn't take long to spot the problem. The moment I saw the name Mark Donovan, I knew. A quick look at her phone records confirmed it. She was calling him a couple of times a day. Mark Donovan wasn't just a competitor in the convenience store business. He was also a football player. And to me, as a rugby man, that made it worse. Now I needed to confirm what I suspected. That Lisa was having an affair and, worse, using my money to fund it. Following them myself wasn't an option. I could take time off work without an issue, but I'm a big guy. I'd stand out like a sore thumb if I tried tailing them. A private investigator seemed like the only solution. I flipped through the yellow pages and found a company in a town about 10 miles away. I deliberately avoided the firm that handled my store's security, even though they were the best in town. Chances were Donovan used them too, and I didn't want to risk a conflict of interest. I booked an appointment and brought along a couple of photos of Lisa. The PI was an ex-cop, judging by his demeanor, and seemed fairly successful, though for all I knew, he could have been a flash git bluffing his way through. It didn't matter. All I needed was proof of the affair. He didn't need to be Sherlock Holmes. He estimated it would take about a week and asked for a 1,000-pound retainer, which I paid without hesitation. On my way home, I noticed the fuel gauge was low and pulled into a small petrol station to fill up. As I filled up the car, I looked around and couldn't help but feel I was staring at an untapped gold mine. The place had potential. When I went inside to pay, I realized it was a small, family-run operation, just a husband and wife team in their 60s. We struck up a conversation, and it wasn't long before they admitted they were looking to retire but hadn't taken any steps to sell the business. I asked for their price, quickly calculated it was about 250,000 pounds below what the place was worth, and suggested they get a professional valuation. Before leaving, I handed them my card. Look, I'm a businessman, but I've got to face myself in the mirror every morning. I might have a vindictive streak, but I don't exploit people, and I don't cheat. Well, not much. A week later, I got 2 important phone calls. The first was from Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, sounding almost sheepish. They told me the valuation confirmed the figure I'd mentioned. They seemed stunned when I agreed to their price without hesitation and asked for their solicitor's details to get the ball rolling. The second call came from my PI, and it was less pleasant. He confirmed Lisa was cheating, but not just with Mark Donovan. She'd met another man for lunch, and then spent the evening with Mark while I was at training. I instructed the PI to dig deeper and get me more details. Later, I drove down to settle up with the PI and check out my potential new acquisition. The investigator handed me photos of Lisa with Mark and the other guy. The pictures showed them in public. No explicit proof of infidelity yet, but damning enough. I handed over another 1,000 pounds and told him to get me something concrete for court. Irrefutable evidence of the affair and the identity of the second man. I played it cool for another week, continuing to perform my husbandly duties in the bedroom. A shag's a shag, and you take it when it's on offer. Lisa didn't act noticeably different, neither more hesitant nor more eager. Oral was off the table, as usual during the week. I wasn't too concerned about STDs since we always used condoms. Lisa refused to go on the pill, claiming it made her gain weight. By Friday, the PI delivered the final pieces of the puzzle. The second man was a bloke named Paul Daniels, a sales rep for a company that supplied bag sundries to stores like mine. Sewing kits, small rolls of insulation tape, electrical fuses, that sort of thing. Lisa had visited his flat twice that week. As for Mark Donovan, their rendezvous included some steamy action in a secluded car park while I was at training. That was it. My marriage was over. I'd seen and heard enough to know there was no going back. Timing was key, though. Knowing her cycle, I figured she'd soon be out of commission for a week, which gave me the perfect opportunity to start phase 1 of my plan. I grabbed some chilies from one of the stores and extracted their juice. Carefully, I smeared it onto the crotch of a few pairs of her knickers, the big ones she kept at the bottom of her drawer for that time of the month. I wasn't done yet. With a hypodermic needle, I injected a little of the juice into her tampons. I'd heard of guys using wintergreen for pranks like this, but that stuff has a distinctive smell. Chilies seemed subtler. I wasn't entirely sure it would work, but it felt like a reasonable bet. Donovan was a regular at the local recreation center's five-a-side games, where I occasionally joined in for fitness. My lack of finesse with the ball was a running joke, but I made up for it with speed and endurance. Goalkeeping rotated so everyone got a fair workout, and my rugby background gave me an edge when it was my turn. Donovan, full of confidence, thought he could run circles around me. He was slick with the ball, no question, but when he came in close while I was in goal, he couldn't find a way past. He tried sticking the boot in a couple of times. I made a point of drawing attention to it. Nothing dramatic, just laughing it off, but the message was clear. When the opposing team scored, we switched keepers. Donovan kept trying to get under my skin, taunting me. When he pressed in to steal the ball, I was a bit loosed with my footwork, clipping his ankle lightly. Later, when he had possession, I accidentally body-checked him hard enough to send him sprawling. Naturally, I apologized, blaming my lack of experience with the faster pace of five-a-side, and even helped him up. He didn't take it well, but the others backed me up. They'd seen his earlier cheap shots. The next game, Donovan upped the ante with a reckless tackle aimed at taking me out. I saw it coming and timed my move. As he lunged, his foot slammed down where my ankle should have been, but instead, his knee collided with my upswinging boot. The force and momentum caused his knee to twist in ways it wasn't designed to. The sound of tearing ligaments and cartilage was unmistakable, followed by his screams. Once again, I put on a show of concern, apologizing profusely for the accident, but no one else was buying his act. They'd all seen him try to injure me, and they made it clear he had only himself to blame. We called him an ambulance, and I even offered to drive his car home for him, just to be helpful, of course. He refused, naturally, but the damage was done. By this point, Lisa was feeling the effects of the tampered knickers and tampons. The chili juice was clearly doing its job, and she was visibly uncomfortable. After a couple of days, she finally went to the doctor. Of course, the doctor had no idea about the real cause and prescribed her a cream, which she discreetly stashed in her handbag. I hadn't tampered with all her tampons to avoid making it too obvious when her period ended. When I got back from football one evening, I found her sitting on the sofa, fuming, her face a storm of anger. "You scumsucker." "Who is she?" she snapped. "What?" I replied, feigning ignorance. "Don't play dumb. You've given me syphilis. Who is she? I'm going to take you to the cleaners, you cheating piece of shit. I'll take every penny you've got." "Wasn't me," I said calmly. "Must have been Mark Donovan or Paul Daniels." The mention of their names hit her like a ton of bricks. Her anger crumpled into shock. "What? You know?" she stammered. Without a word, I opened my briefcase and handed her a copy of the private investigator's report. "Pack your things and get the hell out of my house," I said coldly. Tears welled up as she broke down completely. "Where am I supposed to go?" she wailed. "That's not my problem," I shot back. "But if you've given me a dose, you're getting nothing from me." "Not a damn thing." I was beyond livid. As I mentioned earlier, Lisa refused to use the pill because she was worried about gaining weight. So we relied on condoms for birth control. If she had something now, it meant she'd been screwing them bareback. Disgusting. Serves her right. I grabbed a roll of bin bags from the kitchen and headed upstairs to the bedroom. "I'll give you a hand packing," I shouted, dumping the contents of her drawers into the bags without any care for what went in. I just shoved everything in, unceremoniously. Once I had all her things packed up, I loaded them into her car, took her keys, yanked the house key off the ring, and kicked her out. I slammed the door behind her, fuming, grabbed a beer, and sank into the recliner. I'd known about her cheating, but having it thrown in my face like that was enough to push me over the edge. It felt like my heart had been ripped out. I drank heavily to numb the pain. When I woke up the next morning, I was left to face the aftermath. Surprisingly, my hangover wasn't as bad as I expected, probably thanks to my fitness. I went into work feeling down and out. I took care of the usual tasks, made an appointment with my solicitor, and then closed my office door to think through my next steps. Oddly, I didn't feel the need to take revenge on Lisa, Donovan, or Daniels. I just felt empty. My staff noticed my mood right away, and Big Mary, the store's unofficial agony aunt, was sent to have a word with me. Mary was in her late 50s, had seen it all, and was one of those no-nonsense, motherly types who didn't let anyone get away with anything. She sat down across from me, waiting for me to speak. All right. Lisa's been cheating, and I kicked her out. That's it. I'm not going to do anything rash, so you don't need to worry, I said. Maybe not now, but I know you, Mary replied. Give it some time, and you'll do something that'll land you in jail. Who's she been seeing? Mark Donovan and some guy called Daniels. Oh shit. You aren't planning to crack skulls, are you? I chuckled. Actually, I busted Donovan's knee last night. Oh Christ. Are the police involved? No. I laughed again. We clashed in a tackle during 5-a-side, and he came off worse. She gave me a disapproving look. Boss, you've got a lot of people who depend on you, and they like working for you. It's time you grew up a little. You don't need to prove yourself all the time anymore. People come to your stores because they know you're solid, and they know you'll help them out if they need it. Donovan only gets business because you give him room to trade. This vindictive streak you've got is totally against your usual character. I looked at her, mildly surprised. Mary laughed. Everyone knows you play it straight, but if someone crosses you, you make sure they pay. That's why you don't have many problems. Now get it together. Stop obsessing over revenge and start enjoying your life. The business will take care of itself. This is the perfect moment to change your perspective. There'll be women lining up now that you're back on the market. If I were a few years younger, I'd be fighting them off. If it weren't for your Bert, I let the implication hang. Mary was a good-looking woman. You dirty bugger, she blushed. I'm old enough to be your mother. You started it. As Mary left, I realized she was right. I'd spent my life building a business, constantly feeling like I had to prove myself. It was time to stop that. Even my rugby was just me trying to prove something to myself. Sitting there, I took stock of my life and made the biggest decision I ever had to make. It was time to put away childish things. So, that's the turning point for me. Right then and there, I felt the urge for revenge drain away. My business has grown to a size I'm comfortable with. I can manage it on my own while still maintaining a personal connection with my staff. But I've also started expanding my social life. I still play rugby, but now it's more about staying fit, and I actually enjoy it more. I've taken up dancing and joined a hill walking group. I spend a lot of time hiking in Europe during the summer and have met some very fit women along the way. Fresh air and beautiful views seem to do wonders for building international connections. As for what happened with my ex-wife and her lovers, well, Lisa didn't come out of the divorce as well as she thought. I did right by the Harrisons, giving them the market value for their business. But to buy them out and rebuild the petrol station, I had to raise a mortgage on my own property. Removing the old fuel tanks alone cost a fortune. So when the divorce went through, I was left with a mountain of liabilities, according to my accountant. Since we were only married for 5 years and had no kids, my solicitor arranged a clean break settlement based on my net worth. Lisa got the house, but she had to take on the mortgage herself. She had to go back to work and struggle to make the payments. Eventually, the house went up for sale, and she disappeared from my life. As far as I know, she probably found someone else to latch onto. I never did figure out why she hooked up with Donovan. As for Donovan, his leg never fully healed, and he now relies on a cane. Not only is his football career over, but he's also put on a lot of weight. To make matters worse, his car was broken into while parked outside the recreation center that night. His laptop and briefcase were stolen, and rumors say he also lost a hefty amount of cash, though he didn't report that to the police. Between his slow recovery and the loss of his laptop, he had to sell off a couple of his shops. I thought it only fair to lend a hand, given that I was partly responsible for his injury. So, I bought his 2 best shops. He was managing on what he had left, until his laptop and some documents were recovered by the police. I'm now in the process of buying him out completely, just to help him settle his debts with the tax man. As for Paul Daniels, he'd been supplying sundry items to many shops, though not mine. Somehow, word got out about his affair with Lisa. Turns out, she wasn't the only wife he was seeing, and when someone else found out, Daniels ended up getting a severe beating. The police had too many suspects to figure out who did it, so no one was ever charged. Karma has a way of catching up, and just to set the record straight, it wasn't me. I had other plans that night, involving some passionate pursuits. Still, Mary didn't seem too surprised when she heard the news. Maybe, just maybe, I've grown a little. Dear listeners,